Chike and the Sword of Hatred. Welcome back, my children. Today on Storyplanet, we are going on a trip to Nigeria, specifically to the land of the Igbos, of warriors and heroes, but also land of war and strife. In this world, there are things beyond our control, but with God's help and the wisdom of the elders and the good people of all ages, we can pull through and make things right. This is the story of Chike Ebu. Chike could be you or me, a normal young lad living his life with his whole future ahead of him. Imagine Chike, a schoolboy, carefree and footloose. In the heart of Nigeria, where the red earth carries the footsteps of generations, Chike once stood in a schoolyard and watched his whole life collapse in a single violent moment. This is the story of Chike, an Igbo boy whose life was defined by tragedy, shaped by vengeance, and ultimately redeemed by love. But sometimes the justice we seek is not the justice we need. Stay with me, because this story of death, exile, love, and forgiveness will haunt you long after it ends. Chike was just 10 years old when his world ended. It was an ordinary school day in Enugu. The sun was merciless, the playground buzzing with children's laughter and shouts. His older brother, Obinna, tall, strong, full of life, was Chike's hero. Obinna always protected him, always. But that day, Obinna had become the target of a group of older boys. A small quarrel had grown into bullying, and bullying had grown into rage. And in front of dozens of witnesses, one boy whose name Chike would never forget, picked up a stone. The playground laughter stopped. The stone fell, and Obinna never rose again. For Chike, time froze. The cries of teachers, the rush of children, the silence of his brother's lifeless body burned themselves into his soul. That night, under the flickering lantern light of his family's home, Chike swore a silent vow. He would never forgive. He would never forget. One day, he would avenge his brother. Years passed. The boy became a man. Chike was brilliant, disciplined, unshakably determined. While others played, he studied. While others chased fleeting pleasures, he prepared. He earned a scholarship, and from the bustling streets of Enugu, he journeyed to America, to Harvard University, where he studied law. Harvard was another world. Snow on the ground, old brick buildings, debates echoing in lecture halls. But Chike carried his past like a stone in his chest. Every case study, every late-night reading session, every courtroom visit, he sharpened his mind into a weapon. Not just to defend, but to attack, because in his heart he was not only becoming a lawyer, he was preparing to reopen the trial of his brother's death, a case that was never truly closed, never truly judged. But while he was abroad, tragedy struck again. First, a letter from home. His mother had passed. Then months later, another letter. His father too, both gone, leaving only Chike and his little sister, Ifeoma. Grief nearly broke him. But Ifeoma needed him now. He paid her tuition, guided her through her studies, and became both brother and parent. And yet, deep inside, the vow of vengeance still smothered. When Chike finally returned to Nigeria, he was no longer the small boy from the schoolyard. He was a man, a Harvard-educated lawyer, confident, sharp, with eyes that seemed to see right through you. He founded his own practice in Lagos, one case at a time, building his reputation as a fearless advocate. He defended the helpless. He challenged the powerful. Clients came from far and wide, whispering his name in admiration. But behind the legal briefs and courtroom battles, he carried out a secret investigation. Through dusty archives, he pieced together old records. Through childhood friends, he gathered memories of that tragic day. Through long talks with Ifeoma, he learned what their parents had whispered about the case before they died. The boy who killed Obinna had vanished into adulthood. His name was like a ghost. But Chike's determination was iron. He knew one day their paths would cross. Then came Adaeze. She was not part of his plan, not part of his vow. But sometimes love crashes into your life like a storm you cannot resist. Adaeze was a rising actress, talented, graceful, radiant. She was also Ifeoma's close friend. When Chike met her, he tried to remain distant. He told himself he was too busy, too focused, too broken. But Adaeze's laughter melted his walls. Her wisdom, far beyond her years, disarmed him. And slowly, the man of vengeance allowed himself to feel something he had buried for decades: joy. They fell in love, and for the first time since childhood, Chike believed that perhaps life could be about more than grief. When he asked Adaeze to marry him, she said yes with tears in her eyes. Ifeoma danced with happiness. Chike felt at last that God had restored something of what he had lost. But fate was not done with him yet. The day of the bride price negotiations arrived. It was a bright morning, full of music and chatter. Elders gathered, kola nuts were presented, drinks poured. Tradition flowed like a river, steady and unchanging. Then came the introductions. Family members of the bride, family members of the groom. And then a face, a name, the uncle of Adaeze, the boy who had killed Obinna. In an instant, the schoolyard returned. The stone, the scream, the silence. Chike's chest burned. His hands trembled. The room spun. Without a word, he rose from the ceremony and walked out, leaving behind stunned elders, a heartbroken Adaeze, and a confused Ifeoma. That night, he sat alone in his office, staring into the darkness. His life had turned full circle. Love and vengeance had collided. What should he do? Days later, a knock came at his door. It was him, the uncle. Older now, weary, his face lined with guilt. He sat across from Chike, his voice low, heavy with sorrow. All these years, I have lived in chains, he said, chains of guilt. Your brother's face haunts me. I cannot eat without tasting ash. I cannot sleep without seeing blood. Then he reached into his jacket and placed a gun on the table. End it, he whispered. Set me free. Take your vengeance. My life is worth nothing. My family would be better off without me. My niece, your Adaise, would be free to love without this burden. Kill me, please, and let the story end here. Chike's hand shook as he picked up the gun. His heart pounded. For a moment, vengeance was within reach. He raised the weapon, pointed it at the man's head. Years of grief, of rage, of longing for this moment boiled inside him. But then he saw himself, not as a lawyer, not as a brother, but as a prisoner, shackled just like the man before him, shackled by hate. With a cry, Chike dropped the gun. It clattered to the floor. I will not be you, he whispered. I will not carry your chains. I release the sword of hatred I have been carrying around on my back all these years. I release it. Chike's voice broke as his whole body shook with emotion as he spat out his words, tears streaming down his face, tears he had not shed for decades, tears he should have shed, but he could not, blinded by rage and boiling fury. Chike had never felt so vulnerable in his life. His shoulders slumped as a wave of fresh pain washed over him. He saw his brother Obinna pinned to the ground. A blinding flash hit his eyes as he felt the pain Obinna must have felt as his life slipped away. Chike dropped to his knees. He bowed his head in homage to his brother. He could see Obinna in his mind's eye now. He marveled at how Ifeoma now resembled him so much. He nodded softly as Obinna stretched out his arms as though to embrace him and mouthed the words, "Let it go," to him. "Yes, Obinna," he whispered. His eyes closed, but he could see Obinna as clear as day. "I will let it go. I promise." With these words, Obinna started to disappear. Slowly, as though in cinematic slow motion, fading gradually, a peaceful smile on his face, as though to say, mission accomplished. Chike watched his brother return to the land of the ancestors, eyes remaining closed. When there was no more trace of Obinna, he opened his eyes and looked around him. The uncle was still standing there, a look of awe on his face, mouth agape, tears streaming down his cheeks. Chike slowly got on his feet. Without a word, he walked out. That night, Chike sat with Ifeoma. She took his hand, her voice soft but steady. "Brother, Obinna is gone. Nothing will bring him back. But if you keep living in his death, you will never live your own life. Forgive, not for him, not for the man, but for you." Her words pierced his soul. He held her hands and told her of the events of that afternoon. The two siblings cried together for hours. The next day, Chike went to see Adaeze. She had been weeping, confused, torn between love for her family and heartbreak over Chike's withdrawal. But when he stood before her, his eyes clear, his voice steady, he said only this: "I choose you, not the past, not vengeance. You, if you will still have me." And Adaeze, with tears of joy, embraced him. The wedding went ahead. The bride price was paid. The music rose. The drums thundered. The dancers spun. Under the blessing of the elders, Chike and Adaeze became husband and wife. And as the celebration filled the night, Chike felt something he had not felt since childhood. Not victory, not vengeance, but freedom. Vengeance had been Chike's fire, the compass of his life, but in the end it was forgiveness that set him free. Because sometimes the true enemy is not the man who wronged us, but the chains we forge inside our own hearts. And when we learn to let go, we do not erase the past, we redeem the future. I hope you enjoy this story. If so, please subscribe so you can see more stories like this one. And don't forget to like the video if indeed you liked it. Till next time, peace and freedom.